You got to listen to me. This guy has that crazy power. He's got something weird where he hits guys. They look confused.
It's incredibly impressive what he has done in a short amount of time.
It's a new day, and nothing's really quite going your way.
I watched him beat everything. I watched him beat Jason Wilness. I watched him fuck up everybody over there.
Clinching the grab.
Before stepping into the octagon with Alex Pereira, opponents are way too confident, believing their carefully planned strategies will overcome his weaknesses. These experienced fighters enter the octagon convinced their MMA skills are far more superior than Pereira's kickboxing, and they all aim to capitalize on his inexperience in MMA. But what happens after each fight is a completely different story. The devastating power of his left hook, his imposing presence, and his way of adapting to every fighter is out of this world. Fighters who underestimated him leave the cage humbled with a lot of respect gained for Poatan and his striking. Facing Pereira changes their perspective and opens their eyes to why he's so powerful and respected in the UFC. Alex Pereira is the kind of fighter you don't take lightly.
It's a big right hand.
But Andreas Michailidis didn't get the memo. Before facing Alex Pereira in the UFC, Andreas Michailidis entered the promotion as a relatively new contender with a mixed record of 1-1. This indicated his competitiveness, but also signaled that he was still untested at the highest levels. Like Pereira, Michailidis aimed to establish himself in the middleweight division and be seen as a promising fighter early on in his UFC career. But as you'll learn throughout the video, it's easier said than done when you're going up against the likes of Pereira. Israel Adesanya made the same mistake by thinking Pereira was an easy win when it comes to MMA, but let's talk about that later. Michailidis' matchup against Pereira was expected to be a significant test for the Brazilian's transition from kickboxing to mixed martial arts. For Michailidis, it was a chance to test Pereira's adaptability in MMA, particularly his grappling and ground fighting skills, which were seen as his biggest weakness. Because, obviously, the man was famous for his kickboxing during his time in glory. But it was a different story when put into practice. Michailidis attempted to neutralize Pereira's striking in their bout by focusing on grappling tactics. But despite Michailidis' efforts, Pereira wasn't as easy to take down as he had hoped. In fact, he was far too overwhelming. So much so that he ended the fight with a stunning flying knee knockout in the second round.
With all the clinch and the grab.
As expected, Pereira's standing in the UFC was immediately enhanced after this incredible finish. But Michailidis' career went downhill at the same time. Later performances failed to match his initial promise, leading to a streak of defeats that ultimately led Dana to release him from the promotion. You see, the pressure coming from loss to Pereira weighed very heavily on Michailidis as he struggled to regain momentum afterwards. After losing to Pereira, Michailidis dropped down to welterweight to regain momentum. However, he lost to Rinat Fakhretdinov and was fired by the UFC, which drastically damaged his professional mixed martial arts career. Bruno Silva had a similar experience. Bruno Silva was a seasoned MMA fighter with over 30 bouts under his belt and a reputation for durability before he was ready to take on Pereira. Initially, he posed a tough challenge for Alex Pereira, with his experience and confidence in both striking and grappling. This made him one of the toughest opponents, which was expected to test Pereira's skills in the octagon. However, things didn't quite pan out the way Silva was hoping for. Despite a strategy to mix striking and wrestling to neutralize Pereira's offense, Pereira was just too dominant. The bout showcased his amazing striking and ability to control the fight. And this is what ultimately got him a unanimous decision victory.
Silva showing some toughness, but he's getting teed off.
Silva is covering up, and Pereira is foot on the gas pedal. Oh my! Now Silva's punching back.
Following their clash, Silva openly acknowledged Pereira's size and striking power, recognizing how challenging it was to face him in the ring. this was the first time that Pereira proved that he's one of the most dangerous new strikers in the UFC and not one to be taken lightly. After all, this was the second time he humbled yet another fighter in the UFC. Silva's career trajectory was reevaluated as a result of the loss, and although he went on to compete, it was not easy for him to bounce back from the setback. There was no way for him to regain his traction in the competitive MMA scene. With his victory over Silva, Pereira established his reputation as a rising star in the middleweight class, and this marked a major turning point in his UFC career. His relentless pursuit of success in the octagon also set the stage for future challenges and opportunities to showcase his skills. Unfortunately, one of the challenges came from Izzy, another tough opponent everybody thought Pereira would lose to. Israel Adesanya. Before their MMA encounter, Israel Adesanya had already established himself as one of the best UFC's middleweight division had to offer. He was famous for his accurate striking and technical skills. Not only that, but Adesanya had successfully defended his middleweight title multiple times and had an undefeated record in MMA. Now, despite having suffered 2 previous losses to Alex Pereira in kickboxing matches, many fans were expecting Adesanya's MMA skills and defense to be his saving grace, and the one thing that could prove to be a challenge for Pereira's aggressive style. But what actually happened was far from it. But in the end, Pereira's relentless drive and calculated adjustments paid off as he won via second-round knockout, signaling a turning point in his UFC career. Following the fight, Adesanya showed a lot of respect for Pereira's skills and asked for a possible trilogy match to exact his revenge. But it's probably going to be the same story because Pereira is just too good. Unfortunately, Izzy's skills weren't enough for him to retain his title that day, which made Pereira the new middleweight champion. Pereira's powerful striking is just too much to handle. This loss was a turning point in Adesanya's career because it was his first MMA defeat and it ruined his perfect record. But it also highlighted areas where Adesanya needed to improve, particularly in defending against opponents with powerful striking abilities who could exploit vulnerabilities in the defense. If anything, Adesanya has been salty after losing to Poatan so many times. He even said that after Artur Kyshenko, he wants to be the second person to KO Pereira. And he did just that in the second round in the main event of UFC 287. But this was after losing to him 3 times, so it doesn't really hit the same. Even Jan Blachowicz wasn't as salty. Sure, Blachowicz claimed he was wrong, but that's because he executed his game plan effectively right from the start against Poatan, who was a debut entry into the lightweight division. In the opening round, Blachowicz pushed Pereira against the cage and succeeded in taking him down after some initial defense from the Brazilian. Pereira attempted to get back up but ended up exposing his back, allowing Blachowicz to secure a dominant position on the ground for the rest of the round. But even despite multiple attempts, Blachowicz couldn't secure a submission with a rear naked choke. Blachowicz managed another takedown after dodging Pereira's strikes, but he couldn't capitalize on the ground. And in the end, the judges faced a challenging decision, with the fight being very close, especially in the 3rd round. 2 judges favored Pereira's consistent jab and effective leg kicks, while the 3rd judge leaned towards Blachowicz's aggressive combinations and takedowns. Ultimately, the verdict scorecard agreed with the decision, awarding rounds 2 and 3 to Alex Pereira in what was a closely contested battle.
And Rob McCarthy scores the contest 29-28 for the winner by split decision, Alex Pereira!
Post-fight, Blachowicz acknowledged Pereira's size advantage and impressive striking power, recognizing the difficulty of dealing with him inside the octagon. The encounter served as a learning experience for Blachowicz, showcasing Pereira's ability to compete at the highest level in MMA despite his relatively short time in the sport. Pereira's victory over Blachowicz just shows his potential as a legitimate threat in the UFC, no matter what division. Blachowicz was the 4th undisputed UFC champ. He's defeated in only 7 bouts with the promotion. Let that sink in. Sean Strickland is another story. As usual, Strickland approached his fight with Alex Pereira with confidence. He believed he could handle Pereira's striking and execute his own game plan effectively. But that's just Strickland being Strickland. He's not known for giving much weight to his opponents, and he did the same with Pereira. He thought his superior experience and capabilities in the octagon would get him the win, but what happened inside the octagon was an eye-opening experience for Strickland and his fans. Strickland had a major change of perspective after meeting Poatan. Strickland was humbled by Pereira's explosive first-round knockout, which demonstrated his superior striking technique. The loss forced Strickland to reassess his approach and tactics, particularly when dealing with opponents who have crazy good striking skills. So much so that Strickland formed a training partnership with Pereira, benefiting from his opponent's expertise in striking techniques. His choice to work with him after the fight shows that he understood Pereira's potential and future in the UFC. But most fighters just can't digest how good this guy really is, just like Jiří Procházka, whom he's facing next at UFC 303. So the question is, will Alex Pereira be able to dominate him too, or will this be his undoing? Let us know what you think in the comments and subscribe for more videos like this.